Welcome to the session. This is part of semester 5 for 3rd BA Advanced English students, paper 6, American Literature. I am Dr. D. Fatima Rani of English Department from CHSD St. Teresa's Autonomous College for Women. Today's topic for discussion is the drama written by a famous American playwright, Eugene O Neill, and the title of the book is The Hairy Ape. Today, we are going to discuss the significance of the play and the themes of the play and also the symbols used in the play by the writer, and we'll start with the significance of the title The Hairy Ape. The title of the play is Hairy Ape. It is titled after the protagonist Hank. The subtitle of the play is A Comedy of Ancient Modern Drama. The ancient life represented by the gorilla and the modern life by Hank, because Hank regresses and degrades into an ape-like being. So the title and the subtitle are appropriate as the protagonist Hank mental degeneration to an ape-like being. The hairy ape represents Hank's confusion of identity, and his death still in that confusion gets revealed by his last remarks. To quote, "Where do I get off at? Where do I fit in?" Even the play Hairy Ape seems to be a fairy political play. There is a marked contrast of the sweaty fireman whose brute strength propels the ship that provides diversion and pleasure to those privileged class who inhabit the upper decks. There is an obvious reference to exploitation of the workers. The play is laced with the concepts. In other words, it's really about the existential condition of man, namely that humans rarely feel that they fit in, that they are essentially always alone and separate. The sea is one of the backdrops for this drama, and it reinforces the idea of dislocation. The sea is always creating distance. The sailors on the ship are disconnected from the family and home. So the title of the literary work should be suggestive of its main theme, or it is titled after the protagonist's name. In the drama The Hairy Ape, the theme of Hank's degeneration in the process of his quest for his identity into an ape-like being has been dealt with. Throughout the drama, he is obsessed with the words like the hairy ape with which people address him. The play ends with Hanks being placed in the case of a gorilla, where, according to the writer, he belongs. The play has also a subtitle, A Comedy of Ancient and Modern Life. The subtitle is ironical, and it fits the main theme of the tragic play in an ironical reverse way. Hank is the protagonist, as we know. He has enormous physical strength, but he has simplicity of mind. He is hairy chested with long arms of extraordinary power. On the whole, he is broader and powerful than others in the Stockholm. He has physical strength and capacity for destruction like a hairy ape. An ape is the embodiment of physical strength and primitive simplicity. He can work for long hours, and he also compares himself, the Hank compares himself to the smoke and coal, which is unaffected. So a comedy of ancient and modern life is also ironical here. Hank's life is obviously a tragic life, and the audience, as readers, we have no doubt that in nowhere in the play the audience induced to burst into laughter. So we can say that the tragic death of Hank makes us very sad. From the dramatist vision of life, the life of a modern average man like Hank should be profoundly tragic, because through him we find that a human being has been reduced to an animal-like, ape-like being as a result of the pressures of the machine age. So too deep a grief produces ironical laughter in a human being. So the author means something like this: the human being has become an animal is too deep a tragedy for us to cry. It makes us laugh out of that profound grief. Therefore, both the title and the subtitle of the play are very apt, very appropriate. And there are many symbols which were used by the writer. We shall just have a gist of, we'll go through the symbols used by the writer here. Robbins the thinker is one of the symbol used by the writer very often throughout the play, who symbolizes the angst need to think. And next symbol is steel. It's a symbol for power and oppression. Next, Mildred's white dress. It is a symbol of extreme privilege. Aang, the protagonist himself, he symbolizes the animal nature of a man. Mildred Douglas, it symbolizes the rich capitalist class who lives a life of comfort and luxury. Confrontation between Aang and Mildred symbolizes the modern class conflict between rich and the poor. The title, The Hairy Ape, is symbolical of Aang's degeneration into an animal-like being. Stockholm conveys an impressing of cramped space. It stands for overpopulated, uncomfortable, present-day civilized world. The ship and its engine symbolizes the advancement of the world in respect of science and technology. The iron bars of the prison and the cage symbolize the degenerated state of the civilization brought about by science and technology itself. The skyscrapers in the Fifth Avenue symbolizes the sky-high ambition of modern civilized world in respect of material development. So, in elaboration, how the writer used steel as a symbol in the play, we see here, and this also ape, how the writer uses ape and how he compares the hero to a ape is elaborately given here, how he symbolizes. When we look at the title Hairy Ape, so the word ape, shall we just elaborately discuss about the word ape. Apes are everywhere in the in the play. Aang is called an ape. Aang thinks he is an ape. Mildred thinks she sees an ape. Aang tells people he is an ape. And ape symbolizes man in a primitive state before technology. Complex language structures, complex thought, or money was necessary. The ape represents man that is not only behind an evolutionary sense but is free of class, technology, and other elements of modern society. So the ape is only concerned with the survival. Thus, Aang, constantly compared with apes, does share some characteristics with his early primitive relatives. S- Um, Aang, like like the ape, struggles with thought, doesn't understand the class system. He is the best language skills and is most concerned with his survival on earth. So, in addition, male apes are known to be very territorial, and they are like bullheaded and aggressive. All descriptors that could be used to describe Yang. We'll also go in detail with the themes that were discussed in the play. Belongingness, isolation, alienation as themes in the play. Man is a social animal. He wants a home, a family to belong to, and sympathy, friendship, and fellow feelings for the members of the society to which he belongs. But when this sense of belongingness to home, family, or society is shattered, a man suffers greatly. The hairy ape studies the theme of isolation or alienation or the loss of the sense of belongingness of Yang, the protagonist of the drama. Yang, the protagonist of the play, lost his sense of belongingness and feels alienated and isolated from his family and society at large. As a result, he undergoes terrible sufferings and ultimately dies almost like an animal. The real theme of the play is social alienation. or isolation and search for identity. Man has lost the sense of harmony in nature. He is unable to establish harmony with his fellow men. His work has grown soulless and mechanical, and he feels lonely and isolated, a mere insignificant part of a big machine, and not a human being busy in creative, purposeful activity. So, the writer himself has explained that the hairy ape was a propaganda in the sense that it was a symbol of man who has lost his whole old harmony with nature, the harmony which he used to have as an animal and has not yet acquired in a spiritual way. We find in the drama Ankh is detached from home, though he says he belongs to the ship. This is quite ironical and has a satirical purpose from the point of view of the author. He is satisfied with his present condition as a stalker. He is the dominating figure among the stalkers by virtue of his superior physical power. Thus, not being able to find it on earth or in heaven, he is in the middle trying to make peace, taking the worst punches from Lot, and can't go forward, so he tries to go back. This is what his shaking hands with gorilla meant. So, but he cannot go back to belonging to either. So, Ankh represents the paralysis of the industrial worker in 1922. Though the themes of isolation, paralysis as related to class structure, and regression of humanity still make the play relevant. Ankh is described as a strong and a bullish character similar to that of an animal. He used as a fireman on in an ocean liner for the upper class. On the ocean liner, he is ignored by the rich and he is misunderstood by the poor men he works with also. A sense of isolation exists as a theme in the play and as a characterization of Ankh himself. Ankh is paralyzed in his position as an animalistic worker that is used to drive society but is ignored by it. So the writer uses Ankh to describe the essential recession of humanity. Industrialization turned humans into beings more resemblant of animals than intellectualized beings. His argument is not only that the poor industrial workers are animalistic, but that the rich are also animalistic for failing to understand their human counterparts. So we can go for another theme which was discussed is the frustration of class. We see two class of people in this play, both Mildred and representing both sections simultaneously. The hairy ape reveals how deeply and rigidly class is inscribed into American culture and the culture financial boundaries. Mildred and Ankh are representative of the highest and lowest societal classes. While Mildred and Ankh's lifestyles are extremely different, they share similar complaints about class. Mildred describes herself as the waste product of her father's steel company. She has financial benefits of the company but has felt none of the vigor or passion that created it. Mildred earns to find passion, but she never enjoys that um, richness in her life. Yank, on the other hand, has felt too much of the life. Ankh decides to topple the class structure by reinscribing the importance and necessity of the working class. So, Ankh defines importance as who belongs. So, class limits and the determines both Mildred and Ankh's financial resources, educational opportunities, outlooks on life, and culture. We also see the human regression by industrialization, which was discussed by the writer. So, the resounding theme of the hairy ape is the effect of industrialization and technological progress on the worker. Industrialization has reduced the human worker into a machine. Today, the job of a coal stalker is actually done by a machine. Workers are thus forced into jobs that require nothing but a grunt work of physical labor, which has in turn caused a general deterioration of the worker into an ape like state. So, this is made very clear by the writer on the stage direction, which indicates that a fireman actually look like apes, especially Paddy, who was all the time working along with Ank and other character like Paddy. They were looking like monkeys, I mean, like ape, because of their workplace and work nature. So the hairy ape thus centered on Young's loss of faith and belief in himself as well as in the world in which he lives. Yang, in his search for identity, discovers that he is alone, lonely, and the world is impossible to live in. And secondly, that the steel is no power within him but a prison around him. Ang had thought that he was the creative element in the ship, the working man, but now it's all dark. Ironically enough, he ends up at the zoo and creeping close to the gorilla. He asks, aren't we both remember of the club, the hairy apes? And as Doris Flagg suggests, Yang surrenders himself to the only self image of which he can be conscious, that symbolized by the ape and the cage. It is here that his sense of disillusionment is complete. From the time he was insulted by Mildred to the time of his death, he has been in search of identity, to discover his sense of belongingness by overcoming his sense of isolation and alienation from society. But he failed. After his death, the writer comments that at last he found his identity and knew that he belonged to the ape cage. Then he goes. So at the end, we see uh, at the end of the play, we see Ang couldn't find his belongingness or identity. So at last, he goes to the zoo. He meets gorilla in the cage. He tries to be friend with him. He calls him as brother and tries to embrace him too. The gorilla crushes him and throws him into the cage before death. He invites people to look at him as an original hairy ape from the wills. So, from the account given above, the hairy ape may be considered through the tragedy of Ang and through his utter disillusionment about his having a solid sense of belonging, dramatization of the human predicament in the modern age. Like Yang, every individual is having a false sense of belonging to his workplace, his home and country, and is trying hard to keep up with the ideal that such a sense of belonging connects. But in doing so, he actually goes through a process of disillusionment. He realizes that what he believes to have possessed, what he has worked for throughout his life, are all chimeras which seems to be constantly receding into more distance. The more he approaches them, or the more they seem to be within his grasp. The drama has a strong grip on the psyche of the audience because every member of the audience comes to identify himself with the Aang, because it's very much dealt with the modern age, how today's man is suffering because of lack of identity and lack of belongingness. So the dramatis extraordinary art make is possible, and Aang's sufferings serve to open his internal eye to his own predicament. Through every man is not like Aang. Though every man is not like a Aang, a worker in a ship's stockhole, but he feels like being a Aang for the moment towards the close of the drama. Like Aang, he seems to be imprisoned within his own workplace. Like Yang, he seems to have some ideas about self identity. and belongingness. Like Yang, he suffers in his struggle for realizing his identity and ideals. Like Yang, he experiences an utter sense of isolation and alienation from his own workplace, his own home, and society. He imaginatively foresees a tragic death in the condition of utter loneliness and alienation. So, this is how the writer discusses the themes in the play along with the symbols what he uses. So, I hope students you followed how writer is telling us the title Hairy Ape is very apt, and also the significance of the title is very apt, and also the themes and symbols makes us understand how the writer is going to tell us the modern man is suffering with a lack of identity and belongingness. Thank you very much. Hope we'll continue with some more topics in our next session. Thank you.